Hi everybody and welcome to Beyond Politics. Today we'll be speaking about potential biochemical warfare and the future of food and how both of those things are interrelated. So biochemical warfare might sound like a very far-fetched idea that is made for crazy dystopian or sci-fi movies, but actually here at home, very close to home, here in South Africa in in our apartheid era government, there was a project called COAST, which was a biochemical development program, and that was ended in 1995. But let's not think that these things are far-fetched. Why do I mention COAST? Well, in Hungary there was a foot and mouth disease outbreak on a cattle farm. First outbreak to happen in 50 years. The outbreak apparently is now contained, but the chief of staff to the Prime Minister of Hungary stated that according to information he received from a laboratory, that they cannot rule out that this outbreak was not of unnatural origins. And that is quite a sobering thought, to think that an outbreak on a cattle farm that resulted in the slaughter of 3,500 cattle was perhaps a result of a man-made virus. And why is that relevant? A cattle farm, a man-made virus, somewhere in the middle of nowhere where an outbreak hasn't happened in 50 years. The possibility of governments still having biochemical programs out there. Well, one has to look at how the future is being designed and who is designing the future. The World Economic Forum, for instance, has 10 centers, and we've discussed these 10 centers in a video quite a few months ago. They have 10 centers which effectively serve to be 10 global government departments, and they see to every facet of human existence. And the World Economic Forum is pretty much at the forefront of shaping policy that your government decides to implement. And so that's why politics is a very iffy thing. It doesn't matter which country you are, doesn't matter how democratic that country pretends to be. Most of the parties who are funded and functioning will easily fall in line with what the World Economic Forum and United Nations and similar such institutions direct. And that is a problem. It's a problem because how humans live, the very nature of what it means to be human, is changing because of these decisions being taken at a global level. So I'm going to be reading snippets from specific articles from the World Economic Forum and a few other places to highlight exactly how we eat is being changed. And I think how we eat is so important. I mean, food is such a vibrant part of culture and life. And if it changes to unnatural means, it will change who we are, probably at a molecular level. So here from the World Economic Forum, they state that you'll be eating replacement meats within 20 years. I'll share the link to this article. Please go read it. I'll just give you some snippets here that should make you hopefully want to find out more about what they're doing. It says here, meat is big business. According to analysis, the global meat market is worth $1,000 billion in 2018, and this is set to grow as the population grows, of course. And the World Economic Forum's Alternative Proteins report, so they actually have a report called Alternative Proteins, and you can go read about it by clicking on the link. And it says that the demand for meat will double before 2050, and this they see as an absolute crisis because, why? Because of climate change, because of this global climate crisis. And this is why it's so urgent in their eyes that the human population converts to eating synthetically formed meat, if you can call it that. So at the same time, concerns about how to feed this expanded populace, along with the impact meat has on factors including our health, the environment, and animal welfare, have been steadily rising. So throughout this article, the wording and psychology is very important. They really try and make meat sound unhealthy, and these alternative sources sound safer and better for your health. Vegetarianism, veganism, and flexitarianism, that's a funny one, are regularly in the news, with more and more people becoming advocates of plant-based eating. A study conducted by the UK research company Yuga found that 1 in 5 people believe that the future is meat-free. I'm sure it would be different in South Africa. I think we are a very meat-orientated country. At least I hope it would be different. But I think this is where the school system now comes into play, where at a school level, children are fed all kinds of propaganda to shape their ideas and change the course of the future by changing the kinds of decisions they will make as adults. and that's through the education system. So correspondingly, in recent years, we have witnessed a sharp upsurge in the attempt to find viable alternatives. Classic vegan and vegetarian meat replacements have been a standard feature on our supermarket shelves for several years, of course, while insect-based meat replacements, while available, occupy a relatively niche position. Most recently, the search has found its way into our laboratories, and startups like Impossible Foods, Just, and Beyond Meat have brought novel vegan meat replacement and plant-based product category that imitates the sensory profile of meat to the table. Looking further ahead, other companies are now using advances in biotechnology to prototype and test cultured meat, which is created using cells extracted from living animals slaughter-free. So this seems to be like one of the next big things. There's an article where Bill Gates actually speaks about cultured meat and how cultured meat will be a better alternative protein because it's actually technically still from an animal, but without the cruelty. And so with cultured meat, they take like a blood sample from the animal, they use those cells to create tissues in a lab, and then they shape those tissues into aesthetically pleasing shape. So it looks like a steak or it looks like a burger, but it's made in a lab. I don't believe, and it's personal, I'm no scientist, but I don't believe anything made in a lab would be healthy for us. Part of preserving humanity, in my opinion, should be preserving the way humans have eaten all these years. And yes, we do eat unhealthy, factory-produced, processed food, and that's our choice. But essentially, the human diet should be made of things that occur naturally. But more scarily than the World Economic Forum pushing this concept of a meat-free future is the C40 cities. So the C40 cities is a group of 100 mayors from across the world who come together to try figure out how they're going to unite to end the climate crisis. And we have 4 mayors part of the C40 initiative. We have Durban, Tshwane, Joburg, and Cape Town, all part of the C40 initiative. And they are very, very passionate about ending the consumption of meat. Here's an article on the website, the C40 cities, and you'll see the link in the description. Please do this research yourself. It's very important that you own this knowledge. A sustainable diet by 2030 is key to solving the climate emergency. So they say food is one of the biggest sources of consumption-based emissions in the world's biggest cities. Action could cut greenhouse gas emissions from the food we eat by more than 60%. And the research conducted by C40 cities, as well as the University of Leeds, revealed that urban consumption, including the food consumed in cities, is a key driver of climate change. So this is what politicians are learning and being fed by larger institutions. When you elect someone to public office, you need to ask yourself, what do they believe about the world? Because they will make decisions based on that. So if we have a president or MPs or mayors or councillors that believe that humans have to change our very natures in order for the planet to survive and not tackle the real issues, then we have a problem. And that is the situation we're sitting with today. So food is one of the biggest sources of consumption-based emissions. As they say, they repeat themselves a lot. We are facing a climate crisis on a planetary level, says Mark Watts, Executive Director of C40 Cities. So to keep global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius will require action on a scale never seen before in peacetime. Action on a scale never seen before in peacetime. Those are important words to digest. The findings presented by C40 today reveal that by working together across cities, national governments, supermarkets, restaurants, farmers, and individual citizens, we can rapidly reduce the emissions created by the food we eat. To create the future we want, we must take urgent action to cut food waste, reduce meat and dairy consumption, source food locally, and reduce the impact of food production, transport, and storage. If we succeed, we will live longer, healthier lives. Well, that's arguable. So those are important words to take into account. Because working together across cities, national governments, supermarkets is all about changing human behavior by making it impossible to be free and make choices for yourself as an individual. Anna Koning the mayor of Stockholm, says food is a vital part of our lives and a defining aspect of our cultures, especially in the world's cities. However, the ways we produce, use, and dispose of our food often comes at too great a cost for the environment and public health. And the scary part is, I think it was the World Economic Forum, or was it here? This is one of their goals. Shift to plant-based diets. So citizens will consume no more than 16 kilograms of meat per person per year. I think that works out to about 40 grams a day from an average of 58 kilograms. That's the average now, which is about 150 grams a day, more or less, which is about normal, I'd say, by 2030. And then a target of 90 kilograms dairy per person per year, down from the C40 average of 106 kilograms. That is scary. So less dairy, less meat. I mean, what does that say to you? Climate crisis aside, it looks like this is an absolute agenda to make people weak and unhealthy. If you look at all the dystopian novels and movies out there, all that gloop that they represent as food in all the various forms, whether it's cockroach bars or grey slop, whatever it is. This is what it reminds me of. It's the weakening of the human race, and it's dehumanizing us. And I suppose one can say it would never happen in South Africa, but we need to make sure it doesn't happen in South Africa, because Bill Gates and Richard Branson, for instance, have invested $161 million in funding to a specific company called Memphis Meats. They've since changed their name, in developing alternative meat sources. So there's a lot of money behind it, and governments will obviously jump on the bandwagon and try shape policy around it. And a lot of Bill Gates has also highlighted how one needs to change public behavior in order to achieve the adoption of becoming meat-free by adopting meat alternatives. And I'll share a couple of articles where Bill Gates has been interviewed on his meat-free advocacy. He doesn't say ending all meat completely is a viable option, but definitely making alternatives appealing and accessible to more people. And I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think about a meat-free future? Maybe some of you are vegan on this channel, maybe some of you are not, but I'd love to know your thoughts on what it means to you that there are global institutions that currently influence our government, that are shaping a meat-free future and changing the very nature of human existence. Imagine in 10 or 20 years, everything we eat comes out of a lab instead of coming out of the soil. How realistic is that? We have this article from Hungary stating that the Prime Minister, or the Chief of Staff's Prime Minister at least, thinks that the outbreak, the foot and mouth disease outbreak, was potentially man-made. So that has huge implications for our future, for our food security, and for our way of life as humans on a planet that is becoming increasingly digitized and ushered into the fourth industrial revolution without our consent. On this channel, we stand for freedom and we stand for humanity. And if you care about those two things, then you should definitely arm yourself with all this knowledge and make sure everyone around you understands the true dangers that we face. And only by both knowledge and then also speaking out and taking action can we direct the course that we take going forward, if not in the world, at least in South Africa. Let there at least be hope for South Africa that we can remain a free country, free from all these global agendas.